Hey friends, Steve Martin here. Today is episode 2 of Who in the World is Jesus? This is going to be a good one. We're going to be talking about a woman who Jesus told her everything he knew about her. Okay, we're going to get right into the story. I'm going to be skipping around a little bit on this because it's kind of a longer story. But if you need a Bible, ask me for one. I actually have a link in the description that will lead you to an email. And I have plenty of Bibles to give away. Okay, so if you want to follow along with the stories in the future, here's a quick plug for it. And yeah, let's get into it. Okay. All right, here we are. So Jesus left Judea and returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually, he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field of Jacob gave to his sons Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired from a long walk, sat wearily beside the well about noontime. Soon, a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." He was alone at the time because his disciples had gone into the village to buy some food. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" All right, so a little background, okay? We'll just stop right here and get into it a little bit. There's some animosity going on between Jews and Samaritans, okay? And there's also a woman that's coming around noontime to this well. It's a well-known well, and it's the well that Jacob dug way back in the day, and the ancestors have been drinking at this well for forever. And Jesus really isn't supposed to be here, and she's a little snarky, okay? I love it because the story kind of just gets right into it, and you can just feel the snarkiness. So as we go on a little further, just kind of be aware of that little bit of snarkiness, because it brings some interesting topics to the surface. Okay, so the woman, we'll go back a little bit. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You're a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" Jesus replied, "If you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water." She says, "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket," she said, "and this well is very deep. Where would you get this living water? And besides, do you think you're greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? How can you offer better water than he and his sons and his animals enjoyed?" All right, yeah, we got a little snarkiness going. I'm loving it. I like the realness. I think that we can all appreciate some reality. Jesus replies, "Anyone who drinks from this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water that I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life." Okay, so Jesus is talking about a little bit of a different kind of water here, okay? She's talking about water from a well, and Jesus is talking about, this other kind of water. It's almost like a synonym for something else, okay? What he's really trying to say is the relationship that I can have with you and the spirit that I give to you is going to give you something inside that's going to bubble up. So he's talking about this living water, okay? And so the stockiness continues. "Please, sir," the woman says, "give me this water. Then I will never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come back here to get water." So Jesus says, "Go and get your husband," Jesus told her. "I don't have a husband," the woman replied. Jesus said, "You're right. You don't have a husband, for you've had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth." All right, so now we're getting somewhere. Goodness, huh? I bet she didn't expect that this was going to go this way, coming up, hanging out at the well, some guys there that shouldn't be there. Conversation goes on, stockiness ensues, and suddenly Jesus is telling her, "Yeah, you don't have a husband. You're speaking the truth. You've had 5. And the man that you're living with now isn't your husband either." All right, so let's keep on going. "Sir," the woman said, "you must be a prophet." And she goes on to say, "I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus told her, "I am the Messiah." Just then his disciples came back. They were shocked to find him talking to a woman. But none of them had the nerve to ask, "What did you want with her?" or "Why you're talking to her?" The woman left her water jar beside the well and ran back to the village, telling everyone, "Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah?" So the people came streaming from the village to see him. Then they said to the woman, the people that came, "Now we believe, not just because of what you told us, but because we have heard him ourselves. Now we know that he is indeed the Savior of the world." All right, guys. So there's a little background to the story. Jesus is getting ready to leave Judea, a town in Israel, to go to Galilee. And he has to cross through needs to cross through in Samaria, as a town that's in between those 2 towns, okay? Now, the real religious people, they wouldn't even go through Samaria, because it's kind of like going somewhere that you're really just not welcome, okay? If there was a town or a part of town that you're just like, I don't think I really want to go through there. It was something like that, but there was some deeper issues for sure. But Jesus decides, hey, you know what? We're going to go, and we're going to go through here, and there's a purpose. Okay? So he's sitting there at the well. The disciples have just left to get food in town. And there's a woman that comes to the well. Okay? And she is coming at noontime. Now, this kind of gives us some clues to what's going on with maybe that relationship that she's having and some of the relationships and husbands that she's had in the past. It's an indication that she probably is ashamed of her lifestyle, okay? People weren't coming to the well in the heat of the day at noontime to draw from the well. I mean, this well is where people are getting their livelihood. This well is where people are going to get their water for the day and bring it back home so that they can survive. And first, Jesus is there by himself, okay, because no one's there at noontime in the heat of the day. And then suddenly this woman shows up. And she is probably carrying some baggage, okay? She's probably not feeling so good about herself, maybe even showing up just a little downcast. have you ever known somebody, or maybe you are that person, that you just avoid certain crowds? You just know that you're not welcome around a certain area. Maybe you've betrayed a friend and now you just don't show up around that group anymore. Maybe you've just done something that just was shameful, okay? This was the load that this lady's carrying. And she's showing up at noontime by herself. Jesus asked her for water. And then this snarky conversation goes back and forth, you know? And he says, hey, if you knew who you were talking to, you may actually want to ask me for some water. And I would give you water that is overflowing, that gives life, that bubbles up, you know? And then she's just like, okay, so we're gonna get this water. You know, you don't even have a bucket to draw from. And then Jesus says to her, how about you get your husband? And she says, I don't have a husband. And then he says, I know you've had 5, and the man that you're with now isn't your husband. And he breaks her. Just breaks her. Like that weight that she's been carrying is exposed, and it's deep. And I'm sure there was more of a conversation that took place than that's written in the book. But she says, you must be a prophet. And then she says something about, you know, the Messiah is supposed to be coming. And then Jesus says, I am he. I am the Messiah. And then soon after that, the disciples show back up with the food. And they're just like, you know, they're not saying it, but they're thinking to themselves, what is he doing talking to this lady? But the beauty of the story is that everything Jesus does is so intentional. He doesn't miss a beat. And he knows this woman. She doesn't know that he knows him, but he knows this woman. And he knows the burden that she's been carrying and the shame that she's been carrying. And something is unlocked because this woman who's coming in the heat of the day by herself suddenly has the courage to go back to the town and tell everybody, I've met a man who told me everything I've ever done. But she says it with confidence because she knows that she's been accepted. She knows that she's been loved. She knows that she's been forgiven. There's an interaction that happens here. There's a trade-off. And that's kind of the beauty of faith is it's a trade-off. It's me giving all my junk to somebody who is willing to take it, look me in the eye as I am, and say, okay, now let's try it this way. Okay? So eventually the whole town comes back, or a portion of the town comes back, and they actually ask Jesus to stay a couple days. And the end of the story, it goes on that they say, now we believe you, not because of what you've told us, but because what we have seen for ourselves. And this is the way that Jesus did things. He just went from town to town. One guy he got pretty dang famous. But what do you think about the story? Pretty interesting, right? That there's a couple of things that we can take away, okay? Jesus is coming to places that historically would not be acceptable. But those are the places that he's going, okay? He's going to Samaria, where the Jews and the Samaritans, they don't talk. And he's going to a woman there that has some baggage, and he's there to make things right. And Jesus was a bridge builder. He didn't discriminate, okay? And that's the way that he is with us. So that's point number one. Point number two is, he's coming. He's coming for us, you know? Keep your eyes out for him, because in the still small voice, that's when we're gonna hear these whispers. And you know, maybe you're gonna be laying in bed sometime, or maybe you have just laid in bed and just thought about things and thought about your life, and you just felt something. God's alive, and he's working. He works in the silence. Way before I gave my heart to God personally, I was feeling compelled, sometimes by music. Some of the words that I would listen to, I was just feel like there's more. So, point number two, Jesus is gonna find us in these weird spots when we don't expect him. And don't be surprised if he exposes you. But when he exposes, he brings life. And you can see that this lady, she came in as one person. She left as someone else. She left with a confidence. She came a little banged up, left with that living water that he spoke of. There was a transaction, and this is the way life is. This is the way faith is. So next week, episode number 3, the drama continues. I mean, they decide that there's some religious people, and they decide they're going to bring a woman caught in adultery to Jesus. Okay? So let's see how that story goes. It's a little sketchy, caught in the act. But these are the stories. They're more racy and maybe out there than most people expect. The Bible is pretty interesting, okay? And once again, if you guys need a Bible, I'm not reading the full stories a lot of times as I'm going through these, because it would just be too long. So if you need a Bible, just hit me up in the description. Like I said, I have a email that's specifically for this series. So it would be great if you followed along. If not, listen. You can just listen, and we'll get it done. All right, guys. Love y'all. See you next time.